Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Good morning. It's a new year and we've got a very interesting car on review, and that is the all-new electric Volkswagen ID.Buzz. Today we have the 7-seater long wheelbase variant with us on review. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit of its exterior. We're going to take a look at its outside, jump inside and check out its interior, and of course take the car for a drive to see how it performs. But before we do all that, if you're a driver in Singapore and you're looking for the best price possible for your insurance renewal code, check out the link in the description box because we've got some of the most competitive codes for you to inquire. It's free to inquire, so just click the link, fill up the form, get an inquiry, get a code from us, and then you can make your comparisons about whether or not that code is better than your existing one. Without any further ado, let's get on with the review. Let's go. Alright, so jumping straight into the review, this is the exterior of the Volkswagen ID.Buzz, and like I said, this is the long wheelbase 7-seater variant. So for those of you who are not familiar with the lineup, there is actually a normal wheelbase 5-seater variant and also a long wheelbase 6-seater variant. This particular one is a 7-seater variant, which means the second row is actually a continuous bench, which I'll show you a little bit of later on. But right now, if you look at the exterior design of the car, I think there's no admitting that this has got to be one of the most beautiful and eye-catching cars of the last 2 years, maybe. It's just so eye-catching and so in your face and so joy-inspiring, so to speak. I've not seen a person look at this car and frown. You know, it's just always been all smiles. When I drive past, when I drop my daughter off at school, people are pulling out their phones and taking photographs. It's just such a beautiful car. And I think if you're a long-time Volkswagen fan, then you'll also appreciate how the styling has some reference to the original Volkswagen Combi People Carrier. Obviously, this isn't meant to be a remake of the Volkswagen Combi, but I think it does take a lot of inspiration from the Combi. And I think that's said in the best way possible. So if you look at the entire car, you can see how much car there is actually. It's really quite a substantial amount of car, and honestly sometimes when I'm driving around in it alone, I just feel a little bit ridiculous. Like, although I'm driving an electric vehicle, it's still a waste of space and resources for me to be driving such a huge car alone. And I just feel a lot better when I'm carrying people in this car, and maybe that's the whole point of it as well, right? Because when you're driving a car like that, what really ties into the lifestyle of owning a car like this is also the fact that you're also always going out with people, you're carrying multi-generations in the family, your friends and your family going on a trip, going to places. I think that's really the essence of owning a car like that. Because if you didn't do things like that, you really wouldn't need a car like that. Now, going straight into the design of the car, the front fascia is very clean. Other than the netted grille at the bottom, most of the front fascia is actually clean cut and sealed off, and I think that gives it a very modern aesthetic. Down the side, you've got some very cool, almost retro styled rims that go very well with the car, to be honest. And I'm going to step a little bit further back right now, and I'm going to show you what the rims look like with the entire car. So they actually look pretty sleek, almost like an old race car, but also a little bit reminiscent of when you know, some of the commercial vehicles, they have these like steel wheel covers. I think this has a little bit of that effect as well. Two-tone paint job from the top to the bottom. I think that does a great job at making this car look a little bit more retro and a little bit more modern at the same time, because if this were one color, I think it might just look a bit too much like a commercial vehicle. But in this particular case, because of the two-tone color, which I think most of the cars come in two tones as standard. So when you select your color, you're essentially selecting the bottom half. The top is always white. So I think generally a very handsome looking car. Now I'm going to show you the boot as well, and automatic tailgate, nice big branding here, ID.Buzz. What I really love about this car is obviously the storage space, because look at how much comfort my golf bag is sitting in. Now take note that this actually has the seats, or the last row of seats, folded down. So this is currently in a sort of 5-seater configuration, but of course if you don't have a golf bag, where you can take reference is where this line cuts off. So if you don't have to carry so many things and you put the last row of seats up, this would be the amount of space that you would have for your day-to-day stuff. And apart from carrying the golf bag, I also particularly love this additional storage function at the bottom. So you can pull out these ready-made drawers, so to speak, and you can store additional things inside that you want hidden away from view, which is really such a, I don't know, like no other car has presented storage in this way so far. And I think that's just really, really awesome. I can imagine owning this car and then having my golf bag here and then putting my golf balls, my shoes, all my little knickknacks associated with golf inside the drawers. And then when I head to the golf course, it's really just about like loading up. You know, it's like my little arsenal or my little weapons cabinet, so to speak. Now, I'm gonna pull up this seat for now because I'm not. Let me see. Okay, I actually did that with one hand, so that's pretty cool. Right now, I'm gonna show you the how much leg room you have from the second row. Okay, so if you slide open the second row doors, or rather the sliding doors, this is what you'll see in terms of the second row for the 7-seat configuration. If you have the 6-seater configuration, then obviously you have a space to move in between. But 7-seater configuration here allows you for the most number of passengers, of course. And as you can see, absolutely massive amounts of leg room. And take note that this is still adjustable. You can still slide this seat forward and backwards to allow more or less space for the rear passenger. Now, in terms of loading mechanism, all you need to do is, maybe I'm just gonna pan the camera out here. Pull this forward, the whole seat slides forward, and then getting in is actually pretty easy. And leg room at the rear is actually very, very generous as well. So this is one of those cars that will comfortably fit 7 adults on a long journey without any compromise. And that's, I mean, given that the car is such a large car to begin with, I think we would also expect the ID.Buzz to be able to accommodate 7 passengers without any compromise. Now, in terms of the rear, let's jump into the rear later on, and then I'll show you a little bit more about how I look while seated inside. Let's go. Okay, so welcome to the cabin of the Volkswagen ID.Buzz, and we are going to go through its interior, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how this car looks like. Because obviously it's been like there hasn't been another predecessor to the ID.Buzz, so to speak. So this is an all new Volkswagen interiors that you haven't seen on any other car. Of course, for those of you Volkswagen fans, you will recognize some familiar switchgear. So obviously this infotainment unit is something that you'll find on current generations of the of Volkswagen cars. And of course, the steering wheel is also something that you'll find very familiar because it is also applied on the other VW cars. Steering wheel plus the column mounted digital driver's display. This is pretty standard, and you will see this on, I think, most of the other ID cars as well, so no surprises there. Display is clear, it's simple, straightforward, shows you what you need to show, and there isn't like an overly complicated amount of information that is available here. To engage drive in this car is basically through a hand, I mean, it's all controlled by hand lah, but it's a column mounted switch piece, so no longer here. Basically you tilt it forward to go into drive, back into reverse, half tweak into neutral, and if you go up or you turn it forward twice, you can toggle between regular drive mode and somewhat of a one pedal drive, so that's all well and good. And then you just press it in to go into park. No handbrake involved. You basically once you put the car into park, the car directly engages the parking brake, so you don't have to do anything extra there. Similarly, when you put the car into drive, it disengages it. Now, in terms of the infotainment unit, generally it is its display is quite clear, and I think the design of the interface is quite unique as well. The only downside about this is that it doesn't actually come with wireless CarPlay, which I think for a $300,000 car in Singapore, I feel like that's really a little bit unacceptable, because I think having wireless CarPlay or Android Auto is probably one of the points of parity that we expect from cars these days. So the fact that this is such a modern, forward-looking vehicle is supposed to be the, I wouldn't say flagship of VW, but it's quite a momentous launch of a car for VW. And the fact that it doesn't come with CarPlay is admittedly a little bit disappointing. So I feel like this is something that they could definitely do better in keeping up with what's relevant today, because even cars that are 160,000 today probably come with Apple CarPlay as well. So it's really not supposed to be hard to do. Aside from that, I also feel that the reverse camera on the car could probably be a little bit higher quality. So it is quite low in resolution, as you can see, and the 3D or the top view surround camera isn't the most beautiful in terms of graphics. So not to nitpick, I mean, this doesn't make or break a car, and I'll be very objective. You know, if you like the rest of the car, I don't think that this thing should be a major point of concern for you, because you still have a reverse camera that works, and you still have a top view 360 camera that works. However, if you're looking at the finer details of a car, especially for a car that costs $350,000 in Singapore, you know, it's not a cheap car by any means. So at this kind of price point, you're competing with luxury models from other automakers as well. And I would say that these are the little things that will probably make a little bit of difference when it comes to setting the cars apart. So no Apple CarPlay, low camera resolution. I think these are two things that probably could have been done better in the Volkswagen ID.Buzz. But aside from that, I think the rest of the cabin is actually pretty well constructed. No complaints whatsoever. In fact, I think it's well built as usual. And I think I really love the ergonomics of the entire vehicle, in a sense where all this space in the cabin has been sort of optimized to make life of the occupant a little bit easier as well. So a lot of storage space all around. In fact, in your door bins, you don't just have one door bin further down, you actually have a half height door bin at the side as well, so you can put all sorts of knickknacks. And this little piece in the side is actually lined with a rubber insert. So actually, let me get out for you. There is actually a rubber insert here. Okay, it's a little bit well fitting, so I don't want to pull it out all the way, but it is there. And this rubber insert definitely helps to prevent any sort of jingle jangling should you want to put things like coins or small metal objects in the side door bins here. And then furthermore, you've also got other storage compartments. Like over here, you have a sort of like a phone slot. So it's actually pretty cool. You can slot your entire phone inside and it gets embedded. You can see I shove my whole palm in. And then it also comes with USB ports as well. So you can charge your phone right here. And your phone will be tucked away from view, so not distracting for you when you drive. On the passenger side, there's also a glove box. There are the same door bins that you find on the driver's side, and then you got an additional sort of shelf that's available for you to put all sorts of knickknacks. And I think that will be particularly useful for long road trips when your front passenger is in charge of like snacks and drinks and all that kind of stuff. They would find that little shelving bit very, very useful. But perhaps the party trick of the cabin in the Volkswagen ID.Buzz is the center console right here. So this center console, on the surface, it just looks like another storage unit, but it's actually removable. And if you remove this and you bring up this armrest, what you're actually able to do is you're able to sort of move from the front all the way to the rear in a rather unobstructed manner. Of course, somebody my size would probably still find it difficult to move, but my wife, she's pretty small, so she would definitely be able to fit through. And why is this important? So for example, you've got kids in the back who need a bit of attention. maybe a bit whining or crying, or they need help to find their hair clip that they dropped between the seats. Instead of having to stop the car, you know, your front passenger can just move to the back, assist them, and then come back if they should so desire. So I think this removable center console is a nice little bit of kit to have in the car. You know, when not being used, it can be stowed away, it can be kept at home, and then of course it allows you a higher level of accessibility as well. But of course, if you have no need to cross from the front to the rear, then it makes for very good storage on the day-to-day basis. And then perhaps my favorite part of the car is of course cup holder. Oh, I actually accidentally pressed the sliding door opening, which of course, if you're interested, sliding doors controls are over here. You can turn them off completely, and then this one controls the left, this one controls the right. Down here, concealed, are two very sturdy cup holders that will serve you very well. But I must say that when driving in a minivan of sorts, I generally like to put my left leg out into the middle. Just gives me a bit more space as compared to driving in a regular sedan when I don't have this option. So this cup holder being here does sort of obstruct my leg room a little bit. But I think that's very specific to me. I don't know if other people also do the same thing where they sort of like open up they sort of put their left leg out into the middle console, crossing the threshold of the center console, or where the center console would originally be. I like to do this, doesn't mean you do. So for me, it almost feels like the cup holders will not be in use much because I would want my space rather than the cup holders. Truth be told, if you adjust this centerpiece a little bit more diligently, you could actually sort of fit a cup here as well. So technically this could work as your cup holder, which I think in my case, if I were to use this car, I would probably want to keep my cup holders close so that I can put my legs out. Not of particular importance to me, but for those of you who are interested in the sustainability of the car, the entire interior is built with sustainable materials, so you don't get traditional leather seats here. They're all made of this like sustainable fabric. So I guess that kind of adds to the overall narrative of the car as well. This being a bit of an icon in terms of you know, being a large and sustainable people carrier. I think also because of its roots, it's not roots, but its similarities to the Volkswagen Combi of the past, which, you know, a lot of some people used to call it the hippie van. You know, it kind of has that vibe as well, that whole sustainability thing going on. So I think this all ties into the storyline very, very well. The interior color, I believe, matches your exterior color. So as you select different colors for the exterior, I believe your interior options are also a bit different. So that's actually a nice bit of customization that you can do to your car, or a bit of a character that you can sort of make use of in a car that is already chock full of character. In fact, you know, I talking about character, so the funny thing about this car is that it's not particularly I mean, I wouldn't say it's not flashy, but it's not a sports car, right? But I must say that this Volkswagen ID.Buzz is the car that has captured the most number of eyeballs I've ever seen with any car that I've driven, or any car that I've tested, even supercars. So it really does capture the imagination of people. I think people just kind of like they look at it and there's a feel good factor about it. There's such a it's such a happy looking car, such a joyful looking car, and I think that really just kind of adds its, or rather plays into the whole lifestyle element of this whole vehicle as well. Speaking about lifestyle, I don't think there's much of a lifestyle if it's just you as the driver. So let's jump into the back seat, check out what it's like in the rear, because I think that's where a lot of the life of the family is going to take place, where your kids are going to be, and where your friends are going to be. So that's really where the fun is going to take place. So let's jump in the back seat, let's check out how it works, and then later on we'll come back to the driver's seat, and then of course we'll go take the car for a drive, and I'll show you how the car feels on the road. Let's go. Alright, so sliding door entry in the second row, and closing of the door requires just a tap of the button over there. So everything you would expect from a 7-seater people carrier, and as you can see, absolutely acres of legroom, super comfortable in the back of this car. And you also have the option of reclining your seats for a more comfortable seating angle. And of course, okay, let me see, can I slide this in front? Not so sure, but okay. So this driver seat is in my regular driving position. In fact, I think it's a little bit pushed back because of the comfort access. When I actually start the car, the seat will actually move forward a little bit more, so I will have even more leg room. So not much of a surprise, but superb amounts of space for all passengers in this car. But I think what's interesting about this car is probably some of the little bits of kit that you get in the car as well. So rear aircon vents are large and well positioned, so they're up here. Each side gets their own controls. You also get a light here, and you get a sort of a hanger hook that you can utilize up here as well. As you saw earlier on, I managed to climb in through the door handles here. Unfortunately, in the front you don't get any door handles, so a little bit harder to climb in for the driver's seat at least. That one's something you have to get used to. But in the rear you do have these straps that you can hold on to when climbing aboard. There are little pockets here for you to put your devices. I'm not sure what kind of devices you would put in the car like that, or in this kind of pocket. And then you've got massive door bins for the passengers as well. You've got USB ports at the back, so your children or teenagers can stay connected to their devices, which is not the best thing possible. But if it helps them, then on long journeys, then I guess it's a good thing. And then if you should be so inclined to have a meal in the car, there are actually tray tables that you can use to eat a bit of an airplane style meal maybe. I don't imagine myself allowing my kids to eat in the car like that, but I think for those families who do, I think this would be a little bit of a useful thing. And then we've got an airplane style cup holder as well, so that's all well and good. To stow it away, you just need to press the button on the lid and fold it down. And this is a lot better than the old system that they had with the old ratchet system, the ones that you used to find on tour runs. This is definitely a lot better. Harman Kardon sound system all around, so fairly decent. Not the best system on the market, but fairly decent. And if you have children who are very keen on looking out into the night sky, this is actually a panoramic roof, one of the largest on the market. Full size, doesn't cover up to the third row, but it covers up to the second row. And with just a flick of a switch, the electrochromatic plating will actually reveal what's through the glass. So currently now I have it closed in its closed setting, so you can't really see what's beyond that. But if you open it, then of course you have a full view. Of course, that also depends on how well you upkeep your car and how clean you keep your car, because if it's dirty, then basically you can't really see much out of the car. But enough about that. Let's jump back into the car or into the driver's seat, take the car for a drive and see what it's like to operate around Singapore's roads. Let's go. Alright guys, so welcome back to the cabin or the driver's seat of the Volkswagen ID.Buzz, and we are about to take the car for a drive. But before we do that, obviously we usually go through some basic specifications of the car, and please have a safe drive today. Got it. So for the Volkswagen ID.Buzz, essentially whether you're looking at a 5, 6 or 7-seater variant, all the models come with a 86 kilowatt hour battery pack. And Specifically on the 7-seater version, this is good for a range of about 487 kilometers on a single charge. In terms of power, you'll be surprised actually. So despite the large and bulky appearances of the car, you might think performance might be quite pedestrian, but this is after all an EV. So in terms of power, this has about 282 brake horsepower, 560 Newton meters of torque, and Volkswagen says that this car will go from 0 to 100 in 7.9 seconds. So generally speaking, from a specification standpoint, I think the car is quite well spec'd, quite high spec'd actually. You'll get quite a lot of performance from this car, and this is in no way a car that's going to be overly pedestrian or boring to drive, so to speak. But enough about that. Let's take the car on the road and see how the car actually performs, because to be very frank, I wouldn't say that you feel all 560 Newton meters of the power, of the stated power on the spec sheet. I think the car does feel a little bit slower than what is listed, but nonetheless still quite perky. But we'll speak a little bit more about that when we actually get up on the roads. For now, car park speed. So I test drive a lot of cars, sometimes more than 2 cars in a single week, and I'm generally quite used to jumping into cars of different sizes and getting about my day. But I must admit that with the size of the ID.Buzz, and this being of course the 7-seater, the long wheelbase version, I was a tiny bit intimidated in the first maybe 10 minutes. I think it was quite a demanding proposition to drive this car around Singapore streets and car parks. But after a while, after getting used to it, I must say that it does feel like every other car in terms of once you get used to the dimensions and your visual checkpoints. I think at the start, definitely there's a bit of an adjustment period, because this does feel like quite a lot of car to deal with, especially when you're going around smaller car parks. I particularly felt this when I was reverse parking the car in a shopping mall car park as well. Another thing for you to note, if you are new to this kind of car, or new to a car of this size, is that the Volkswagen ID.Buzz does sit at a height of slightly more than 1.9 meters, which means there are limitations to the type of covered car parks that you can enter. So for example, one of my favorite places to go, Queensway Shopping Centre, that is 1.8 meters car park height. So unfortunately I wasn't able to bring this particular car into Queensway Shopping Centre. And there are other car parks in Singapore that are 1.8 meters in terms of height limit, sometimes even 1.9. So those are not uncommon to find. So you definitely need to pay attention to where you are driving to, and what kind of car parks you're bringing your car into. So I guess you'll just be checking car park heights every single time you head out to a shopping mall or to a covered car park. That's just something you probably have to get a little bit used to. The other thing is that when you're driving around at lower speeds, I would say anything below 40 kilometers per hour, you do feel the heft of the car. This is a pretty heavy car at 2.8 tons. So in fact, legally at 2.8 tons, you're not even technically supposed to be utilizing some of the standard 2-lane U-turns that are available on the street. You will need a larger U-turn space for this. But I have tried it out, and despite the size of the car, I think about 2.5 lanes should cut it for the ID.Buzz, which is actually quite impressive for a car of this size. Now, going to before we go on the highway and talk about the drive, I thought I'll spend a bit of time talking about the range as well. So 487 kilometers of range. So obviously in real life, typically what we always expect is that the actual numbers will be a little bit less than what is listed. But I think in many car reviews that we do, because they are standard 4 or 5-seater cars, I think the variance between your range when you're fitting 1 person and 4 people I think that's probably a little bit smaller than the range variants you'll find in a people carrier like the ID.Buzz, because there's obviously going to be a much more pronounced difference between the range when I'm driving the car alone and when I'm carrying a full load of 7 people, like this car is designed to do. So I would really be interested to find out what the actual range is if I've got a full load of 7 people in the car, because I have a feeling that that number is going to be a little bit bigger than the variants you get from a full load in a four-door sedan, a standard sedan. And I think that's also a huge part of the consideration, because people carriers like that, you definitely want to go places with them, you know, take a road trip and stuff like that. So I feel like range might be a real point of contest, so to speak. And unfortunately, you know, during our 3-day test drive, we don't really have the opportunity to always run a full tank, or run a full set of tests with 7 people on board. So in a certain sense, it's all just really speculation. But I think if any of you have any experience with driving a 7-seater MPV, an electric 7-seater MPV, please put down in the comments what are your experiences with driving as a 7-seater MPV, and how much the range differs from the listed WTP amount. I think that will be a real point of interest for many drivers out there. Overall, in terms of performance, I would say the comfort levels of the ID.Buzz are quite high. When it comes to imperfections in the road, the car does feel quite plush, so you don't really feel too much of the undulations in the road. And I think this is a good thing, because if you look at recent cars released from Volkswagen, I think like the ID.4, ID.5, those were a little bit harsh in terms of the ride quality. So not the, I wouldn't say I'm the most fond of those particular cars, but I think specifically with the ID.Buzz, I think this feels a lot more similar to what I experienced with the Skoda Enyaq. A nicer, more plush ride quality, and also interestingly, also a very similar braking experience, which was something that I had to get used to. When you step on the brakes, the initial biting point of the brakes feels a little bit delayed, a little bit augmented. So, or to, you know, for lack of a better word, it doesn't quite bite at the start, and you really do have to step on it a little bit more before you experience any sort of real braking. And I think this is also down to the fact that both the cars have drum brakes in the rear. Now, we're starting to see quite a few EVs having drum brakes in the rear, and I'm not entirely sure what the reason or the technical reason for such a decision is, but it just does seem a little bit strange, because EVs are generally more powerful than their petrol counterparts. They're also heavier than their petrol counterparts, but yet you're moving to drum brakes rather than sticking with disc brakes, which typically offer a little bit more braking power, which is what is necessary to stop a more powerful and heavier car. And specifically in the ID.Buzz, you've got 2.8 tons with 280 plus horsepower and 560 Newton meters of torque. So when this thing gets up to speed, it is a bit of a freight train. I would say I would prefer a little bit more assurances when I'm trying to stop the car, but I think when it has come down to a situation where I really need to step on the brakes, or I really need to apply stronger levels of brakes, the car hasn't failed me or anything. The car has done its job. You just need to get used to the fact that you have to step a little bit harder on the brakes as compared to what you would normally do in, say, your regular petrol powered car with 4 disc brakes. Unfortunately, traffic is a little bit heavy today, so I can't really show you what the car is like to drive up at higher speeds. But generally, like I said, the car is quite comfortable, especially when it comes to managing the imperfections in the road. You do feel like you're a little bit in like a minibus. So in terms of the way the body reacts in relation with the chassis, it's a bit of a strange feeling because it does feel like the body is rolling in a separate direction from the chassis. But maybe that's just because of the height element of this car as well. Because when we've chucked this car around the corner a little bit quicker, actually the car, surprisingly it handles quite well for a car that's 1.9 meters in height. So I was actually rather impressed by the handling of the ID.Buzz. But what I don't quite enjoy about the ID.Buzz is that there's a little bit of a humming sound coming from the motors. And there's also quite a bit of road noise coming through the front wheel hubs as you're going higher speeds. Top speed in the ID.Buzz is only 160 kilometers per hour, which is not uncommon for an EV. Generally most EVs that you find in the market, they have a top speed that's less than 200 kilometers per hour, unless of course you're looking at performance electric vehicles. But standard run-of-the-mill electric vehicles or civilian electric vehicles, generally top speeds are not that high. Maybe about 150 to 180 usually seems like the norm. But I would say that the ID.Buzz does its best work below 100 kilometers per hour. It just feels the most comfortable in its cruising state. Consumption in terms of electric power is also at the optimum below 100. When I've been just driving in a relaxed fashion, say between 80 to 90 kilometers per hour on the highway, I'm getting as low as about 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So that's actually quite a decent amount. But when you try to make the car go a little bit faster, I think two things happen. First of all, consumption drops, or rather consumption becomes less efficient. Second thing is that in an event where you need to apply some sort of braking, like I mentioned earlier, this car does feel like a bit of a freight train. So it feels like it doesn't want to slow down, which is why going a little bit faster tends to feel a little bit more uncomfortable. One of those situations where like you are driving fairly quickly towards a traffic light, say in the middle of the night. So maybe say you're driving at 80 or 90 kilometers per hour on a normal street, and then you are heading towards a green light, and you're always worried that it's gonna turn amber and red as you approach the light. In most cars, you would just sort of approach the light comfortably, and then if you need to accelerate, you accelerate. If you need to brake, you just go ahead and brake. But I found that with the ID.Buzz, I think because of the brake modulation, I find myself slowing down extra as I approach the light, just because I'm not sure how it's gonna feel in the car if I really need to slam on the brakes to slow myself down for the traffic light, or to stop at the traffic light in time. I'm sure the car will be able to do it, I have no doubts about it. I'm just concerned about how uncomfortable it will feel for me, because you are in this massively huge car with a lot of inertia, and then suddenly you're slamming the brakes, right? It definitely feels different from when you are in a regular sedan car heading towards the traffic light. So those are just some of the thoughts that I have surrounding the driving experience of the ID.Buzz. On a lighter note, or on a more casual note, driving position is actually very, very, very nice. I do at times feel like I'm driving like a van or like a commercial vehicle, but like in terms of the driving position. But once in terms of the comfort, you are very sure that you're not in a commercial vehicle, of course. Driving position is very nice. I love the fact that I feel like a bit closer to the front as compared to, say, a very large SUV. And honestly, once you're up on the roads, if you're not trying to park in a tight space, the ID.Buzz feels like a smaller car to drive than it actually is. So in terms of the visuals as well, when you look in the rear view mirrors, the overall dimensions of the car makes you feel quite comfortable. You don't actually realize how long this car is, which is a good thing in my opinion. So that's that for the ID.Buzz. If you have any questions about the ID.Buzz, some unique things that you want to know about that I have not covered, because obviously there's a lot of things to cover in this car, please put your questions down in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to answer them when we have time. And You know, before we end off, we always do this. If you're a driver in Singapore and you're looking for an insurance renewal quote and you're looking for a competitive insurance renewal quote, we have some of the most competitive quotes for you on the market. So check out the link in the description. It's free to inquire. If you need an insurance renewal quote for your car, just reach out to us, get a free quote from us, and you can probably make your comparisons from there. If you have enjoyed this video or found it useful in any way, please consider giving this video a like, sharing it with your friends, and of course subscribing to the channel, because we are coming up to 2,000 subscribers very soon. You would really appreciate your help to get there. And of course, we have new car reviews coming out every single week, so please join us for those car reviews as well. It would be really nice to have you there. If not, as usual, please take care of yourself, stay safe, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.